Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another session at the PMO Leader Annual Conference. I'm excited to introduce today's speaker, Tim Goodman from Cyforma, one of today's amazing sponsors of the event. They're actually the title sponsor of the event, so without them, this event probably wouldn't be going on. So thank you, Cyforma, for being a great sponsor and supporter of the PMO Leader community. But today, Tim will be talking about the impactful artificial intelligence and emerging technologies, but maybe they're emergency related. Tim, over to you.
Sure. Thanks for the intro. So hello, everyone. Hopefully I'm going to make the next 45 minutes nice and valuable for you. So today I want to take you through some of the areas that we see as where AI can provide value, as well as kind of some of the things you might want to do to prepare and just think about that a bit more broadly. Cool. So a little bit about myself. My name is Tim. I'm Chief Product Officer here at Cyforma. I previously come from the world of RegTech, where I was working on, doing KYC, anti-money laundering based software, and then moved into some pretty big data problems over at Open Corporates, where I was helping build out the product and data functions. Cool. So a little bit about us here at Cyforma. If my slide will work. There we go. So here at Cyforma, we aim to be your partner in business in agility, right? We do that by building out PPM, SPM, and WFM software. So I want to be able to help you guys with any strategic portfolio problems you have, any project portfolio problems you have, and just kind of help make sure that your teams can go and execute on that. We have offices around the world, and a pretty broad partner network as well to be able to even get into some of those far-flung places. So what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to kind of go on a little bit of the promise of where this tech should take us, or where we think it's taking us, a little bit on the current hype around it, and then I want to kick it into the data aspect, right, which, as you'll see as we get into it, I'm going to argue is quite important. And it's an area that I think a lot of folks, even if they're not adopting AI right now, can at least start some of that groundwork and get themselves ready. Cool. So the promise. I think as I'm a product guy, we generally like to start and figure out what are the problems we're trying to solve. And so across business in general, right, whether you're trying to improve throughput, reduce costs, improve the quality of your work, or let's say on your more kind of like PPM specific problems, right? I just need a single source of truth, or I need to be able to track the progress of this particular project, or automate my tasks, or manage my risk better. These are all problems general to the space, right? Some of these can definitely be influenced by AI, and will be, and some of them are problems that we've already found, tried and tested solutions to. Right, so the current state of kind of where folks are at the minute is we have our chatbots, right? And we're doing pretty well on that side of things as far as AI's development goes. You're also starting to see the emergence of PM assistants, right? So being able to help you transcribe meetings, generate subtasks, predictive text. These are all things that we've had in part and parcel to date. But you're starting to see in some of the PPM solutions out there that these things are now being bucketed up as an AI upside. Then you also have your kind of more recent generative models that are helping you with content creation, right? So helping you do quick replies, summarize executive summaries out of your tasks and the like, right? But bringing us back to, right, what are the problems we're trying to solve, you might notice that not all of those right now are really tackling any one of these problems, right? So you could argue, let's say, that generation of text helps you improve throughput, right? But at least with certain customers that start to kind of adopt and play around with AI, I have heard a lot, and I've seen it in my past as well, you're having to go and quality assure a lot of that work, right? You're going to have to go and build confidence. So you've still got to lag in that getting to real value that you can trust implicitly any of your models. And I think a lot of businesses are still pretty scared around some of that, right? But I would argue that the reason that a lot of vendors at the minute are focused on these areas are because they are easier, and the data to do them and do them well is available, right? Being able to, let's say, build a chatbot out of your knowledge base, super easy, right? We've all spent the past 10 years building out help desks and knowledge bases and FAQ, systems. So funneling all that data into a model makes a lot of sense, right? That's nice and easy, and we've already got a lot of the framing. Being able to transcribe meeting minutes, we've been getting better and better at that over the past, several years. And then generating subtasks. Again, like, this is not too far out of, this is not bleeding edge uses just yet, right? And I think a lot of the reason for that is companies lack a lot of historical data, or the further back you go, the quality gets worse, or you're missing certain attributes, right? Folks haven't really been thinking about how to build their broader data model in a way that helps them achieve the promises of AI, right? So how do I, let's say, do automated allocation of resources, right? That is easy from a perspective of getting an algorithm to just kind of score folks and put them in the right boxes. That's relatively easy. But then actually wanting to make sure that your system has good understanding of people's skill sets, right? Their training schedules, or their performance to date, right? These are all things that realistically you're not going to get from just log data, right? So that redundant data that your system is building up over time as you're using, whichever PPM software that you're using. And when you actually look at your employee records, you might have some of that, right? But there isn't so far really a great way to then connect that to future plans, right? So is there a way that I can even see how that portfolio will change as I do new training regimes, right? Or as I bring in new skill sets to build up on those cohorts. So I think that really, we've got to spend a bit of time to think about the data models and how we have got our businesses set up so that we can really take advantage. And this shouldn't be new to a lot of us, right? I cut my teeth in data as a data analyst, but I think that all of us have at least had some kind of impact by data problems, right? This nice little list of quotes I found from the internet, just talking about the problem with poor quality data, right? Because it is so well understood, and we've had this problem around for quite a while now, especially if you look at banks and big customer-based companies, getting to have a decent single customer record, right, based on all the other interactions folks have had with that particular vendor, is really difficult. Right? And that's, again, because a lot of the hard work up front just hasn't really been done. Right? So my argument for you today is to think about the data hygiene, right, of your current setup to help you prepare for that future, right? Making sure that you then have good processes as well. So not only are we going to have to think up front, right, quickly go back, about what are the big problems, right, we want to solve over the next 5-10 years, right? Cool. We want to be able to improve our communication, right? So we need to go build a single source of truth. Awesome, right? We need to be able to better manage risk. Cool, right? And then think, how would you do that in a spreadsheet, right? How would you do that in a way absent of AI? Right? Think of the basics of what are the pieces of data, be they meta or otherwise, that you would need to help facilitate some kind of semi-automated decision making. Because eventually, that's all you're going to be passing up to the system. Right? They are only as smart as the data that we feed them. Right? So we come back to and then we need to think about some of the historical data. Right? A lot of companies, as they've gone through IT transformations over the past 10 years, have started to really focus on some of those historical challenges, right? And they've been able to kind of say, cool, this data over the past 5 years is good for all our BI and MI, right? So we need to then be understanding and cognizant of those limitations. And so there's only so far that we can go back before previous policies or processes weren't quite up to date. And then think about how you can start spoon feeding some of that information that you need into your systems so that you've got, let's say, skill sets or, evaluations of folk in there, or again with projects, right? Making sure that you've got a good understanding and labeling of risks, right? So cool, this particular project went through had all these different problems on it, because then later on we can feed that into an AI model and it'll have something to start to understand. And then that will be able to say, cool, I understand this is how the humans understand this particular project or resource, and this is how I understand it from a logline data kind of perspective, right? What are all the discrete things that happen through that I can analyze, right? And then we get onto the kind of not so fun bit, which is process. I've been around data problems for long enough that I think a lot of it comes back to process. Okay? That when you then say, yep, cool, we can go through it and we can assign each and every resource a particular competency, right, or a particular skill set. You then need to think about how you make sure that that's up to date weekly, monthly, annually, just constantly, right? And this is where a lot of those types of processes fall down, is folks generally don't tend to think about the long-term addition of it, right? So it needs to be built into your just day-to-day processes or tasks so that it becomes something that is done without having to think about it. Because otherwise, very much like any cleaning operation, if you're having to keep going in and having a specific time or date that you do everything, it's always going to be a massive job, right? And you're always going to be waiting for that particular hygienic cycle. So you need to find ways to say, yep, when we go through and do our one-to-ones, if there's any change on their skill set or competency or their EMPS, even that gets updated and that is tracked within your software. Right? That everything is being done on the first chances, so that you're not having to double entry data, or you're not having to go into your HR system where you may be doing your reviews and then also replicate that at a resource level software. It just, those types of processes tend to break apart. Right? You'll have certain employees that keep them up to date, and they're always going to be stellar. But I tend to find that you need the process to be as noddy and automatic as possible for it to be, for it to have a certain validity, right? Because otherwise you've got 5-10% that is always going to be slightly off when you do bigger analysis. So where just generally, right, we see things kind of going forward is we have generative AI on the ability to generate summaries and bits of prose, right, out of data that you've already got, be that tasks, be that updates, be that statuses. And then that moves us over into the preventative side, which is then being able to say, cool, actually, right, here are a certain bunch of risks and measures that we want to call out for. So I want to be able to prevent certain issues happening, right? Which is very closely related to being able to also predict certain events, right? So improved forecasting, for instance, being able to set and have all your projects and portfolios rank stacked based on automated risks coming from how things have tracked in the past, and then being able to track and understand your forecast of how things go in the future. And then we come on to what I think for a lot of the PMOs where they're going to feel a sigh of relief is the assistive side, right? So actually being able to help me communicate my information better, or be able to go get all my statuses in and then have a lot of that low value work kind of done for me, so that I can actually focus on making sure that my project's going ahead, making sure that my team is unlocked, making sure that the business has what it needs to do. So just on that, right, I'm going to quickly just flip that to bring it back. Yeah. To remind us, right, that we've got to come back to what are the problems that we're trying to solve. So what for your business right now is the biggest burning area that is causing you some kind of pain, right? And then think about how you would solve that without AI, right? Ignore the AI promise, right? and think, cool, actually, how do I do what is the calculation, let's say, to fix that particular problem? And then we can look at various solutions and try to understand which ones AI actually helps us with. Be that, let's say real-time MIBI. That is probably one of the biggest problems of friction in a lot of big enterprises, right? Is an executive will, or any leader really, will just need to understand an event or a piece of data. And then you go over and you ask your MIBI team or whichever data analyst you can get hold of a particular question, and then they'll return maybe a spreadsheet, maybe a nice little pivot table that may or may not be right. And they are going to do a couple of cycles going back and forth until they get to what both sides agrees is truthful and also accurate. Being able to use AI to leverage, natural language processing so that you can just say, I would like to see what's the risk spread on all my portfolios. Give me the top 5. That is something that very quickly, right, we can turn into some nice little SQL, push to a query, give you that report, and then when the whoever is requesting that report has got to a nice comfortable level, then is a perfect time to go to their MIBI team and say, cool, I think this is what I want to make sure is valid, right? Can you go and make sure that you can either concur with this idea or help me understand some of the additional context around that, right? But it is not just, AI to come and reduce cost on its face, right? How would you achieve that? Right? What are the tasks you would automate, right? And cool, if you've got a whole bunch of work that you wish you could automate, why weren't you already, right? Was there a particular part of that problem that you couldn't solve without AI? And then look to see, is there a particular application? Is there is there some reason that you weren't able to do for the kind of current boom of AI? And then go focus on that problem before you just kind of run headfirst into, all the various AI tools that are out there. All very exciting, but until you understand the problem, make sure you've got good data to kind of fill that out. I think that you're really going to struggle to get something that meets, the general problem. And again, this is why the current state of the industry is very much the same, right? Because we're dealing with small amounts of data, the quality is not great, the history is not great. So we've really got to kind of try to think about, what do we want to solve for tomorrow? What are the problems that matter to us? And in the meantime, how do we make sure that when we do AI developments, that they are impactful and valuable to our customers, right? So that then you've got something to actually go with when you go talk to your info security guys or your data protection officer or whoever it is, in your organization that's looking after the security aspect of AI. Okay, so I'm going to now just kind of touch a little bit on how we're kind of looking at some of the early AI stuff here at Sciforma, which will touch on to what I've talked about so far. One of our recent uses is using it as part of a bot within Teams. And so now we have a Sciforma app that you can chat with within Teams to say, hey, what are my tasks for tomorrow? And then we're using NLP, which has been around for, it's been around for a little while now, right? And it's getting much better with these recent kind of waves of AI. And then turning that into something that our systems can actually understand. The model that we've built out understands our systems. And you can have, as you can see there, we've got a couple of different examples of different ways that you can inquire the system. The whole point of this is it means that now we've got a whole swathes of folk that don't really want to log into a piece of PPM software, right? Or don't really understand the value, right, of doing that. And rather than just pushing that as a employee problem onto the resource manager, right? We're saying, cool, if you're having those types of bits of friction or pushback, here we go. We're already in your ecosystem, right? This is a good place for us to help. And also, maybe those folks do like it. But again, this is bringing those notifications and allowing them to do their work as in a different workflow. So they're still doing the same work in a different workflow, which helps them not have, as much friction in that workflow, right, depending on those types of customers. And this was a problem prior, right? We did have customers that said, hey, my engineers or my, folks on the building site don't like pulling out a laptop to go and log time, right? But they can just update it in Teams on their phone. That makes a massive difference now because we've been able to implement some discrete levels of AI to help us with that particular problem. So recap, focus on what matters for yourselves, right? For your company, for your project, for your portfolio as a whole, right? And prepare your models for that. Think about what data you will need in the future, right? To be able to sustain or answer those types of questions, right? And then think about what that process looks like. And it needs to be sustainable. It needs to be as noddy as possible so that you're not having to keep going in, doing checks on the data, doing, kind of monthly updates where you chase everyone to go update their profiles or update their project. If anything like that, and you're always going to be on the back foot and you won't be living the dream, as it were. Cool. So, little plug. We have a booth that you can come and spend some time at. So I'm going to see if there's any questions and I'll go through those. Cool. So.
Thanks, Tim. I'm not seeing any questions coming in, but if you do have a question for Tim, feel free to put it in there. I would echo, I guess, just what Tim just said. Stop by the Sciforma booth. Some of the Sciforma team members, it looks like they're in the chat, so feel free to send them any questions that you have around the solution. And obviously, thanks to Sciforma for continuing to support the PMO leader community and being a sponsor of this event year over year. Any questions from anybody? I'm going to give them this the last final say. Otherwise, I will say thank you, Tim. Getting a round of applause from some people. I see a lot of clapping hands coming up. So insightful session, and I think fun to see some of the applications that Sciforma has taken with AI and putting that into practice for some of your customers. So thanks for sharing that with us today. I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to end the session, but enjoy the rest of today's event. I know the Americas region will be kicking off here shortly, so stay tuned for more great sessions at the PMO Leader Conference. And Tim, thank you very much.
Thanks, right.